Welcome to the Resilient Reiner, the premier podcast focused on mental performance for equestrians and improved horse show performance. Whether you're a rookie reiner or a seasoned competitor, this show is for riders who want to take their skills to the next level and achieve their full potential in the show ring. I'm Nicole Burnett, and I'm a master mindset coach who's obsessed with helping you achieve all those horse dreams you always thought were impossible. Join me each week to develop a show-ready mindset and gain the competitive edge you need to compete with confidence. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Resilient Reiner podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Burnett. Today, we're diving into a growth mindset and how much it can change the game for you as a rider. Maybe you've heard these buzzwords before. You've heard of growth mindset. I know you've heard of the word confidence, and they're buzzing around in your brain. Maybe you're not totally sure what they mean. And they've both been hailed as key to success, whether you're, nailing a reining pattern or just tackling any challenge that life is throwing your way. But what are they? How does it impact your riding? Well, let me give you a reining example. Imagine you're about to do your sliding stop. If you have the confidence to fully commit to it, you're more likely to have a good stop. And even if it doesn't go perfectly, a growth mindset enables you to analyze what went wrong without crushing your spirit. You learn, you adapt, and the next time you attempt it, you do it with greater skill and confidence. So you can already see how a growth mindset and confidence have this symbiotic relationship. Right? You can see how they feed off of each other in this really beautiful, virtuous loop. The more confidence you have, the more likely you are to take risks, to try new techniques, to not fear failure. And when you do that, you can grow, learn, improve, and it strengthens your growth mindset. And what does a strong growth mindset do? Well, it further boosts your confidence, enabling you to tackle even more complex challenges. It's this beautiful continuous feedback loop that propels you towards new horizons. So, what is the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset? Well, with the fixed mindset, you believe that your talents and your abilities are innate and they won't change over time. So people who rely on their previous achievements and previous success, they tend to believe that there are things they can do and that then there are things they could just never succeed at. A fixed mindset will feel safe with just the way things are, with the status quo. And the risk of trying something new and potentially failing, it can be really uncomfortable if you have a fixed mindset because it can feel like it might even threaten your identity. In contrast, a growth mindset, from this perspective, you see everything that happens to you and you see your success or failure as a learning opportunity. And you can be curious and you might even find yourself predisposed to take on challenges, even when failure is a possibility. Because you don't connect your effort to your identity. So this means you don't feel the need to be the best at something, or you don't feel the need to defend yourself when you make a mistake. Because you are focused on improving yourself and developing greater capabilities. And when that is your focus, those other things kind of fall by the wayside. If you've never heard of this before, this whole concept of a growth mindset was developed by researcher and psychologist Carol Dweck. And she has a book called Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. And so if you put that on your reading list, you can check it out. So Carol Dweck's Mindset. And your mindset, as you know, if you're listening to this podcast, it impacts all areas of your life, right? From parenting to business to education to horseback riding. And one of the things that Carol Dweck discovered in her research was that by praising the effort applied when facing a challenge, you foster a growth mindset. Conversely, praising innate talent leads to a fixed mindset. So I have several children, and I know that this really came up when we were reading some parenting books, and it came up in the context of how you talk to your children about how they're doing in school, because we're going to just talk about some stereotypes here because I'm sure the stereotypes have a basis in some truth. And so imagine the person you know from school who things kind of came easy to them. They were naturally pretty smart and they understood math or whatever it was, and that things kind of just came easy to them. And so they didn't have to apply themselves very much to succeed in school and to get good grades. And so then when they hit college, for example, this is usually where it comes up, then they hit college and life sucks, okay? Because all of a sudden being smart it's not enough. They have to work really hard in order to achieve academic success in college, but they don't know how to do that because they've literally never had to do that. They've never developed that skill. And so they have a terrible time. They don't know how to be successful. They don't know how to work hard. They've never had to in order to be successful. And life just gives them a giant smack upside the head. And it is a lot of those people, some of them never even recover. And in contrast, people who, when they're younger, things are a little harder, but they learned how to work hard and they learned how to figure things out. And then when they hit college, well, it's hard work, but that's okay. They know how to do that. They know how to go to office hours. They know how to figure out how to learn how to do this new math or do whatever class they're in. So then they end up having massive success because they haven't learned to rely upon just natural smartness. They've learned to rely upon efforts, right? And we'll bring that back around to where we started, which is that for children, one of the things that we learned about on this parenting book was that you want to praise your children for trying hard, right? Hey, I see that you're working really hard on this math problem, or hey, like you're working hard to sound out that word. But you want to foster that growth mindset by praising the effort that they're applying when they face a challenge, as opposed to something that is innate or something that they can't change. Like, you just are so good at whatever, but where does that come from? How do they handle that? Where does that go? Right. So you want to really focus on praising the effort that they're applying and not just you are pretty or you are smart, making it seem very fixed. And when we bring that back around to the brain, literally, physically, the brain and the neuroplasticity of your brain, those are some dominant factors that contribute to a growth mindset. And the neural pathways, all of our roads in our brain, talking to other parts of the brain, our neural pathways are altered by the experiences that we have in life. And they're constantly adapting to new situations and the environment that we're in. And the basis of a growth mindset is to establish, we want to develop curiosity. I absolutely say curiosity is the superpower, resilience, and adaptability. And the more we demonstrate a willingness to take risks when we challenge ourselves and try new things, because trying new things is a challenge by itself, right? And the more we do all of those things, the more we create and reinforce these neural pathways physically in our brains that reinforce a growth mindset. So you can literally have some physical underpinnings to this mindset. And before you know it, these neural pathways are strengthened and you've got a whole new way of looking at the world and of operating. And so a fixed mindset is trying to keep us safe. So where does this come from? It's trying to keep us safe. But the downside is that sometimes playing it safe is keeping it small, too small. And confidence and a growth mindset really can go hand in hand, because confidence is a powerful resource and a tool we have when developing and sustaining a growth mindset. When we lack confidence, it can be so easy to be stuck in our own heads and just cut ourselves off at the pass and limit our opportunities and what we believe is even possible for us. So, how do we grow? How do we even leverage the opportunities that are in front of us? So, one of the best hacks here, the shortcut that I can give you, is to adopt a growth mindset. And this means things like challenging and expanding our thinking and asking ourselves some good questions. All right. What is that quote about? There's some sort of quote, I forget who says it, but it's basically that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of questions you ask. Always, always be looking to ask good questions. So, what are some good questions here if we want to expand our thinking? Well, questions like, what is holding me back from trying something new? Why is my identity, why is my sense of self so tied to my expertise? Why do I care so much about being right? Is there any way I can ask for help with confidence? How can I get more comfortable with failing? This is a big question that you can just take and run with, guys. How can you get more comfortable with failing and taking healthy risks? So these are some questions that you can ask. And as we answer these questions, and by doing this, we begin to rewrite the stories we tell ourselves. And when you do that, you start to see opportunities that you didn't even think were available to you before, which is incredible. Leaning into these new opportunities, of course, it will feel pretty scary at first. And that's why we need the courage and confidence to step out of our comfort zone, to be resilient, to ask for help. It's all part of redefining our relationship with fear and failure. And freedom, the freedom that comes from that brings so many possibilities. You might even want to try new things. Just starting really small. I'm a fan of just the tiniest habit, whatever you can think of, do less. Make it the tiniest micro step to take a small risk. Ask for help in a really low stakes setting. And this is really hard, but be okay with not getting something perfect. I know I describe myself as a recovering perfectionist. By allowing ourselves to experiment, and that's why I love the word play, right? Because we're trying things. When you're playing, there's an implication of it might not be perfect, and that's okay. And so I'm very intentional when I use the word play, right? By trying to, because it brings in all of this mental side of how do we actually grow and improve in the best way. And there's all sorts of things that come in when I use the word play as opposed to the word work. So that is very intentional. And we start to build confidence and a growth mindset when we are doing those things. As you can see, some of these building blocks of a growth mindset are things like failure. We're embracing failure. It's not going to be perfect every time, but we are adaptable. We adapt every single time. We're flexible. We're willing to try new things. These are all building blocks of a growth mindset. This continuous learning, continuous improvement are related to the growth mindset, and absolutely continuous learning and improvement are essential if you want to be a high achiever. If you want to be top of your game as a rider, you need to be constantly improving and constantly learning, because it's not just you. It's you plus the horse, plus the arena, plus the weather, there's so many moving parts. It's so complex and dynamic, even riding your horse at home, let alone any time you're in a competitive environment. So your ability to adopt a growth mindset ensures you have the capacity and the ability to handle any setbacks. But just that it's not just the horse, it's not just the setting, the weather, there's people, there's challenges, there's so many things. So I want to close this by challenging you and asking you a good question. So in what small way will you embrace a growth mindset today? Okay. So go ahead and start really small, really, really small. So what's one way you can reframe your thinking? How can you shift from saying I can't to I can't yet? Or maybe you're thinking, oh, I can't do that. But what if you could? What if? What if you could? So, what's one way that you can adopt a perspective of what if? What if? What if? So, do that. Let me know. You can leave it in a comment for the show or send me a message on social media. But I'm serious. I'm challenging you. In what small way will you embrace a growth mindset today and share it? And then don't forget to share this episode with a friend, anyone that you want to encourage today. And like this podcast, follow along for more mental performance tips to keep you at the top of the game. And it really helps the podcast. Please like and subscribe to the podcast, and then scroll down, rate it 5 stars, and leave a comment with something that struck you about this episode today. Thank you so much for riding along with me. I love sharing all this stuff with you guys. Can't wait to talk again next week.